this is a map which is very interesting because it was done by the U.S. Army in 1942. By 1942, the United States and Japan were at war, and the Japanese had taken over the Philippines. In effect, they rang the death knell for the colonial era. But the U.S. Army in 1942 was still relying on some of Worcester's maps and information for their knowledge of the Philippines. And this is called Races and Tribes of the Philippines. Chris, tell us how maps play a role in the process of colonization, how this is part of the strategies and this affects the gaze. And what we also see here is something that already came up, and that is how many tribes there are and tribal areas, how diverse, and therefore Worcester, the arch-imperialist, can say, look, it's a fragmented country, they're not ready to be statehood, we have to tutor them because they're not only backward because he focuses on the tribes, but also because they're not unified. They need us. And this is the notion of the white man's burden that we saw in the earlier units. But tell us how the maps work and this sort of making order out of the colony.
Right. And I think when we look at a map like this, it's a perfect way to sort of think about visual images and power. Because if you think about it, we all use maps all the time in our lives. And a map is an artifact. It's a visual representation. And it's also an incredibly efficient way of conveying information in a visual format. But maps are not innocent objects any more than photographs or cartoons are. They reflect the assumptions of the people who make them. For a map like this would have been originally produced by colonial officials trying to, once again, quickly make sense of the Philippines as a colonial enterprise. And it was not just mapping the landscape to figure out where are the mountains, where are the ports. Notice this is a map of human populations, trying to understand what are these ethnic groups, who are these people. But it also carries within it an assumption that everyone has an ethnic group, and every ethnic group has its place on a map, and that it is the colonial state's role in sort of mapping that terrain and controlling it. So that effort to map the Philippines geographically and ethnically is also an effort to control it.